Hello, this is Blair Stanislao with the Happy Lion Center. Welcome to our podcast, Mystical and Infamous, where we have playful and easy conversations about anything mystical, getting to the heart of all things strange and weird. Join us in a bit of magical tomfoolery, spreading the alchemy of love and light. And now, we invite you to enjoy the show.
Where I got my foundation was just kind of working in this trance state with people. It's kind of evolved over the years to, I don't even know what it is anymore. Someone asked me the other day, so they're like, so what do you do? And I thought about it, I'm like, stuff with people. I don't know. it doesn't fit in the box anymore. You just keep adding all these pieces to it. And like, but I think that's really where the power is, because then, you know, if you need something for a certain situation, then you can rely on that. So I focus on healing the mind, body, and spirit in a way that I find everything kind of all weaves together. Everything kind of connects together. So there's really no separation when we start going through stuff. I come from a medical background, so I love the like physical healing and stuff that people aren't going to get answers to any other way, you know, like the idiopathic conditions that the doctors can't figure out. I love those because like there's always an answer when we do this.
What's been the most interesting? I'll tell you, as a person growing up in what I would call normal expectations or situations for Western society. I was really frustrated because I had IBS, which is one of those idiopathic things, right? So they just test for everything when you don't have any of those things, and they say, oh, well, you know, we don't know what it is. But it's, to me, at least as a patient, it's really frustrating to have somebody say that, and you know that you're having some sort of condition go on that needs to be addressed, and they don't know what to do about it. And literally, they don't do anything. Mm-hmm. So give me some examples of what you've had come up like that for people.
Like, so like the IBS, I would ask, like, your body's communicating with you. It's trying to tell you something. And I find there's a lot of consistency across the board with what your body's trying to tell you. So you tell me you have IBS, and I would ask you what's bothering you emotionally that's irritating you, that you're unable to process. And then you can start like getting to the root of where that's coming from. But a doctor's not going to tell you that. Like,
no, I mean, I think well, even if you look at, I don't know why I looked this up, but for some reason I looked up the word hysteria, and my mom was an English teacher, so we just love words, right? So I just looked it up for some reason, and you look at the definition, and it's basically, you're crazy because you're a woman. That's what it is. I mean, that's not exactly what it is, but you know, like the word only has to do with women. And wow. And so it's, I don't know, as a female, it's like, well, that's really offensive, kind of, you know, like, I'm not really sure what to do with that. But that is where our words come from. It's what, you know, humans are like. And I don't know, it is frustrating.
Yeah. And I think that's why I'm uniquely put in this position, because I had to kind of get dragged to do this work. It wasn't like I woke up one day, I'm like, oh, I should do this. Yeah, it was like 10 years of life not working out. And then me just like kind of throwing in the towel and being like, okay, I got to do something different. And that kind of led me on this path to explore this whole other world that I didn't even know was out there. I thought this was all crazy, by the way. I was like,
so what was going on in your life that kind of pushed you into that? You said 10 years of things not working out the way you wanted it to.
So like the last project I worked on was a cancer research center where I was trying to look at different ways for treating cancer, early detection of cancer, and like doing the cancer research. And it was like, 3 years of putting this together. And right before we launched the project, like we lost like $15 million in funding and like have nothing to show for it. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And then that's when I was like, you know what? All my energy was going into this, and then it just fell apart. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And so I only knew one way. That was the problem, and I didn't know that I was supposed to be switching gears. But the universe was nudging me. I just wasn't listening. So
did you ever would you coming at it now, 10 years later? What would you say about finding yourself in a situation like that?
If something isn't working and it's not working, this wasn't the first time this happened. It was like thing after thing like this, and that was like the breaking point. But if you're trying to do stuff the same way and stuff isn't working out, do something different. Like you're being nudged in a different direction, and that was my like stubbornness of not wanting to change or learn anything new, or I don't know, kind of cling to this old idea of who I thought I was. And when I kind of let go of that and just said, well, um, just show me an open road, and I just started exploring all these things. I started asking questions like, well, why is this happening? First it was kind of like victim me, like, why is this happening to me?
Hmm.
But then it kind of shifted, and I started like asking deeper questions, and that pushed me down this whole road of exploring this whole other world that um I didn't even know existed, and I thought was kind of woo woo. And
Yeah.
so I discovered the work of Dolores Cannon. She's an author. She wrote like 20 books on different things, and that was kind of an eye opener for me. And I listening to this lady talk. I'm like, what don't I know? Like, it's just so matter of fact talking about all these things, and like it's so interesting because nothing contradicted anything that I knew other ways. And I'm
Hmm.
like, and this lady's just like this redneck lady from Arkansas, and like that, like she could be anyone's grandma, and like just
Yeah, I definitely
just
got
couldn't
that
help
vibe
but
from
listen
her.
to it. Yeah.
I especially liked it when people would in the training when somebody would ask, and they put these questions in there on purpose, right? They would ask a question, and her answer was, "No, you don't do it like that." And it just reminded me of, oh, okay, that's like, obviously somebody who really knows what they're talking about. And it definitely had that grandma kind of vibe. Like, better listen to grandma on this one. Yeah.
So yeah, finding her stuff was fascinating, and like um I wasn't so interested in much as much in like the past life stuff, but it was like she'd be talking to someone in like England, they'd be talking about like ancient Egyptian history, and then she'd come to the United States and the person would pick up the conversation where it left off. And I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
how is that freaking possible? Like that blows my mind. I couldn't wrap my mind around that.
Yeah.
And she just talked about it like, no, yeah. So they just, like, it's just matter of fact for her. And I'm like, what don't I know? And that kind of led me to exploring this whole other area. So even with everything I knew about medicine, about science, I was still having all my own physical problems. So, uh, before I had my first like quantum healing session, I was on 14 medications.
Oh my
I was having
goodness.
like grand mal seizures every week.
You were having a lot of problems.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
problems.
Okay. And did that
And
all resolve or
yes,
how
so
quickly? Was it
that
like after
was
one session or what?
it was one session, but it took a little bit for everything to kind of like because I was on so many drugs that
Yeah.
it took like 2 months before I was off all 14 medications. But like that's such a blip looking back on some of them I've been
Yeah.
on for like 20 years. And it was just like that. Like I had to wean myself off just to avoid all the effects of coming
Sure.
off all those. Um and the seizures stopped immediately. I haven't had any since. It was 5 years ago.
So, and you have to wean off that medicine, don't you? The
Yeah,
seizure
because
medication.
yep. So I just over 2 months I just kind of weaned off that, and that was
So what
nice.
was
And
the answer about the seizures?
it was to teach me compassion. I was very self-centered, very in my own world, and like it was to like get me to take a step back and have more compassion for people. And then I was told by my higher self that I learned that, so I didn't need them anymore. And in my mind, I'm like, really, like, is that easy? Like, and so I just kind of just after the session, I just kind of was said, well, we'll see what happens. I wasn't too attached to it one way or the other because I just
Yeah.
got used to it. And after a while, you get so far out, and okay, it's been like 1 week. Okay, it's been like 2 weeks, and then it's like 2 months, and I'm like, I'm not taking any medication, so I'm like, I know something changed because the last one I had was like an hour long on the maximum
Oh my
amount of
goodness.
medication. So,
And
um,
how frequently were you having them?
without medication, weekly,
Okay.
like about on average, like once a week. So,
Well, that's pretty awesome and pretty
yeah,
profound.
yeah. And then that's when I found out I was supposed to be doing this work, and I was like, there's no way that's right.
In
And the
that
lady's like,
session?
yeah, and she's like, just say that whatever comes to mind. I'm like, whatever, fine. Like I was getting an attitude because like there's no way that's right. And I said I was supposed to be doing what she was doing, and then I just kind of followed. I knew, I don't know, you just have this feeling, that's what you're supposed to be doing, even if it doesn't make any logical sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just followed it, and it's been amazing since. So
Yeah, one of my very early practice clients, we did this session, so we have the interview, and then she goes under. She goes under no problem. But I don't know, I was asking her things about like what could you should suggest? We're talking to the higher self, right? What would you suggest for this client to do to help facilitate what she's, her goal? And one of the things it said was, I think it actually said like work with you. And it was that was very early on. It was like my third one. And it was like,
Mhm.
I didn't realize, I think I'm actually hypnotizing myself in a sense, like I'm going into a
Oh,
zone as
sure.
well.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I know that I was kind of there. So I thought, okay, well, that's a little weird, but the way she said it, it was specific enough that it was like talking about doing work with me that I had plans to be doing, which I'm doing now. But I hadn't told her that, right? Like I hadn't told her, oh, I've got this group that meets because we didn't even do that yet. That was a plan, but I wasn't doing it. And so it was really weird. And actually I haven't even reached out to her. I think I
Uh,
did one time, but I don't remember. I don't think anything ever came of it. But yeah, it was strange. Things like that. So have you gotten messages, anything like that? Like something that's pointed for you? I know Dolores had that a lot.
I can't get away with stuff anymore because I get called out the next day. Like, you need to be careful lifting like that. You're gonna hurt your back. And I'm like, I was in the garage by myself. Like, come
In
on.
the sessions, so they're talking about
Yeah.
you. Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
it does happen to you.
Or they'll even tell me about the dreams I had the night before. And
Oh,
I'm like,
sweet.
yeah, I had no idea how connected stuff was until like I started doing this. So,
Okay,
um,
so that's what I really would love for us to talk about. You were mentioning mind, body, and spirit, and this is something that's been coming to the forefront for me really hardcore in the last week or week and a half. Okay. It's like, so I had a major shift last week energetically. And it was one of those things where you get, you're conscious and you're awake, and I wasn't even under, but we were doing this energy work, and it finally occurs to me, whatever she said, right? I need to work on, like, it was using my ability to go into the zone to be basically in the meditative state, right? Um, as an escape mechanism or as a coping mechanism, which is something that I did as a child, which of course makes this easier now, right? But
yeah, yeah.
now when I'm uncomfortable or I don't feel safe or something is like, really, it's when I'm doing something I don't want to do, then I just go there, and it's like, and I didn't even realize I was describing that until I was like, okay, I was going to do this task you told me. I tried 3 times. And every time I did this, it was like 2 hours later. And I'm like, the thing is still not done. And so anyway, so that came through. And then I just see it everywhere, how people are working on things that are connected to us. If they get drawn to us, it's because they're working on the same things we're working on. And it's just all over the board. I mean, even my kids and my husband and like just everybody is just this crazy network.
And you get like 4 clients in a row that have the exact same thing, and then you're like,
Holy cow. Let me tell
yeah.
you. Okay, so one point, this was after I had done the practice and I was getting paid, and I wasn't like, I'm not somebody who's like crazy push all this stuff. I'm like, I don't advertise everywhere or anything, but all of a sudden I got, like you said, about 4 clients, and it was like one after the other. And by the end of the sessions, I'm like, okay, that one was molested too. Okay. Whoa, what does this mean? I never actually really got a full answer on that, but I did have a slew of them that were going through similar things. I should go back and try and see if I've got notes on whatever their answers were, because it was all different for everybody, but it was,
Yeah.
you generally speaking, it's kind of a universal truth kind of thing.
Isn't that cool?
It is utterly amazing. And I'd love to be able to put that either in writing or put that out there in a way that people could see it, whether it be like, um, I think you're younger than me. How old are you?
44.
Okay, just barely younger. Okay, so do you remember not having the internet? Okay. So I
Yeah.
was in college and I can remember my friends from high school who are now doctors. They were all, oh, you should go get this email. And I was like, what? Go get what? And they said, go get an email address. So for me in college, it was like, okay, that means I have to go to this one building that has these computers when they're open. And I had to remember some kind of login, go to some place, which I didn't really know what it was. I mean, I kind of knew what it was, but not really. And then just go and see if you might have sent me a message. I was like, yeah, I don't think so. I think I'm just gonna do, or like I'd rather go outside and play or do something else. And so I didn't wind up doing that. But through college, as the internet evolved, of course, I have friends who are all into the internet, and I realized, yeah, that's not for me. Building websites and stuff way back then. And finally, I saw a website, which is not, there is a domain there, but it's not what it used to be. It was called car2.com, KARTOO. And it kind of, you typed in a phrase, and then it kind of created like word web. You know what that is?
Mhm.
Kind of like where
Mhm.
they have the words that are bigger and smaller depending on their importance or whatever. And it all had like lines. So it was kind of like a brainstorming web, but a word web, but it was based on what you typed in. And so you clicked
Mhm.
on it and then it kind of took you to all of those. This kind of just showed me what searching on the internet was, right? But
Yeah.
after that moment that I did it on the internet, I didn't need explanation about what the internet was. I finally understood it. And
Uh,
that's what I'd love to do for this concept about how mind, body, and spirit, uh, not only within yourself, but also with other people you're working with or you're
mhm.
interacting with,
Yeah.
how it intricately intertwines. What's been your most, we'll just say most recent, because that's probably easiest. What's been the most recent example of how you've seen that combine?
I see it all the time where I can't see we're on the same wavelength
Mhm.
where you're like so enmeshed in the process that uh, I'll think of a question and the person will just start answering it,
Mhm.
and it'll happen like 50 to 75 times in a session. Like it's not like once or twice, it's like
Oh, so you're not even like verbalizing it, actually
no, I'll
asking.
think it and
Yeah.
they just start talking about it. Like
Okay.
it's pretty cool to see an experience. And even if like I'll feel people's physical stuff, just like if your knee's hurting and you're not telling me, like I'll start
Mhm.
feeling it, or um,
Yeah.
it helps to like direct the session. But you're so, I think, energetically involved with the person that I don't know,
So you
that it
kind
is
of
kind of
feel,
that
you
web
kind
that
of
is connected.
experience it. So that I would say that is basically a form of psychic skills, right? Like
Mhm.
clairvoyance of some sort. So you're connected to this other person's energy, and so much so. Do you think they're actually hearing you ask the question?
I don't know. I think they're getting this idea that hey, I should talk about this next. It's like they're answering it like on a subconscious level without like
Uh-huh.
consciously thinking about it. But there's a reason that they start talking about it. So
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of wonder too, because I imagine that energy is kind of coming through for I'm sure that you guys set the intention, right? Like, so you set the intention for whatever the healing is. And some of that is by getting the right questions, right? I mean, you're a practitioner, you know the questions are really important. And so you've set that out there, and it's almost like you're both getting, I know that clients, they get, of course, they always get the images that they need.
mhm.
But you as the practitioner also, I feel like I've always received the questions. And if I don't receive them, then I just wait. That's one of those
Yeah,
energy practice kind of things. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
it really just astounds me, and I would love to be able to kind of put that down onto paper so that people could understand. What about in terms of putting, let's just go back to your personal life. So you had a session, you had some really significant healing, and how would you say that mind, body, and spirit? I mean, we already talked about your body, right? Well, how did
Mhm.
that all kind of uniformly kind of go together to help you shift over to doing this kind of work, I guess is my question, because you went from a very different life to doing
Yeah.
this hippy dippy woo boo, whatever you want to call it.
I think part of it was because like I got answers for stuff that there was no answers for any other way. And like even without telling myself that I was supposed to be doing this, like the push for me to like believe in this 100% was like, I don't know, having my own experiences, but then also like being able to get these answers where like nothing contradicted itself. Like I've asked some of these questions my entire life, and the first couple of weeks of doing this, like everything was answered, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I have to come up with new questions
So
because
give us an example of what some of those questions were that really helped push you over the edge.
just some of the stuff around like how the world works and where do you go when you die and what happens with like stuff that I couldn't find in religion, stuff that I couldn't find in like without conflicting information, and here like everything just clicked. Um, and the stuff that I ask now, I can't even understand the answers to. So like some of
Oh,
the stuff
really?
gets
Like
like
what?
out there. Let's see, something just simple like time. I was
Uh-huh.
like, okay, I can kind of grasp that there's like this now moment. Like
Uh-huh.
past doesn't exist, there's no future. And I'm like, what about sequence? Like, didn't my mom have to have me before I could be in this now moment? And the answer was, Well, it's actually your inability to understand the backward motion of forward-moving events that creates the illusion of sequence in time, human. And I'm like, and like all the gears are crashing, and I'm like trying to make sense of it, and like this idea of like simultaneous time, and like, yeah,
hmm
it just hurts my head. And I've had quantum physics, and I don't know, I can't wrap my mind around some of the
Well,
ideas.
you're familiar with quantum entanglement, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So does that help the knowledge of quantum entanglement, the double slit experience? Does that help you to process that kind of stuff?
In terms of time, not really.
Okay.
I see like the quantum entanglement. I see that as like the reason that like we're all connected. Like the reason someone can tell me about my dreams is that it's all connected. So
hmm
I asked about this too, and they said, well, we see ourselves like fingers on a hand. We don't know
Yeah.
that we're
hmm
all connected further up, and in that connection, there's no separation. There is no you. There's no me. There's
Right.
know,
Yeah.
it's just this field. So, in terms of that, yeah, the quantum entanglement makes sense. And scientists think they're planting a flag somewhere, but this stuff has been known for thousands of years, you know?
Right. So as soon as you said that, I thought to myself, well, there's a first future version of you who does get it. But then you spout that off, to say as you don't get it, that means you're going to get it
Oh,
because it's
yeah.
there. Yeah.
That gets even really confusing, like all the different versions of you and how they exist simultaneously, and how like, but that's also the reason that these amazing things can happen.
hmm
Like I've had people regrow body parts, and I've had people like move their bones back into place, and like stuff that would seem like physically impossible. And on a quantum level, it's totally possible. Like they're
Yeah.
shifting to a version of them that never was injured, that never had that.
Yeah. So that touches on the ideas that I have understood to be what sometimes people refer to as timeline shifting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, tell us
So
what you think about that.
the way it appears to me is like there's an infinite number of versions of Blair that exist simultaneously. The one you're experiencing now is the one that you're aligned with, like the one that you're
Mhm.
matched with. So vibrationally, frequency wise, um, kind of like all the radio stations are playing right now, but you can't hear them until you're like dialed into a certain station, and then you can perceive that frequency. So, um, and we're going through these different shifts all the time. They're so fluid that we don't even realize it.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like a film strip. Like, there's each individual frame, but they're going by so fast that it just seems continuous. But really, you're shifting between these kind of, I see them as dimensions all the time. And so when we go through some of this work, it's like dumping off the crap that's keeping you from aligning with the version of you that you want. So people are trying to like, they think they have to do something to get somewhere, but it's like, no, you have to dump off the crap that's keeping you from your natural state. And
Yeah.
then
And
you see,
that's the state in which the human body just heals.
yep. And then it's like, it appears like it's miraculous, but really you shifted to the other version of you, like you said.
Yeah, there was an epiphany I had at one point, and I haven't been able to I don't think sufficiently explain it, but I'm going to try and see what you think about it. So I had a moment where I was working on past stuff, letting go of past whatever was going on, and it finally occurred to me, and I'm sure I was doing timeline shifting kind of work. It finally occurred to me the way that we have a different past is essentially we tell ourselves a different story about what we remember as the past. And to remember a different story, we have to go through the emotions that allow us to feel that new story. But that doesn't, I guess I struggle a little bit with, does it actually change what happened? It doesn't really change what happened, but maybe it changes how you feel about what happened.
Yeah. And then what I find is it's not so much the story, it's what we attach to it. So
Mm-hmm.
you can watch two people go through the same scenario and they both come out different on the other end. It's because how they attach to it. So what you're
Yeah.
feeling, what you're thinking, the things you're telling yourself in that moment, maybe the beliefs you're taking on, that's the part that's stuck. So
Yeah.
I kind of do things a little bit differently because I don't like to drag people back through crap
Oh
because
yeah,
like
I
you
don't
already
like that.
survived.
I didn't like that about talk therapy either. I was like,
No,
oh,
like, oh, we're gonna rehash this, and for what?
it's
Like, because
was it
that's
fun the
really
first
not
time?
that's not what's holding it in place. It's
Mm-mm.
what you're attaching to that. And once you can see what that is, you can be like, oh yeah, I don't need to do it that like that. Or something simple as like, oh, it's not worth my happiness to hang on to that. And from that point, that's when you can really make those shifts. But yeah, in your mind, you're changing your relationship to that past event. And even if you look at people that study memory, every time you recount a memory, it doesn't come back the same way. So it's basically you can change that. You can change the past by
Right.
changing how you relate to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I even had well, what I'm noticing too now is because I've started doing dream interpretation, and that's so much fun. I definitely like it almost as much as the hypnosis. I mean, it's very different, but I like it. And actually, yesterday, somebody was they were under hypnosis, and she was telling me the things she was seeing, and of course, I'm like, okay, because I with a dream interpretation, somebody asked, it might have been me, I can't remember who asked. Somebody asked, when you're in meditation and you see things, okay, um, is that the same? Does it have the same symbolism as dreams? And he, without a doubt, said yes, 100%. So once you learn those symbols and how to go about reading them, I don't even know that you really have to have even conversation if you just get to see what's happening there. And so that's sort of what I was thinking. But I don't know, I have noticed that the dreams will show um, issues, emotion, especially emotional issues that you have with, usually it's your mother, your father, which actually he says it has to do all with the masculine and feminine, meaning how are you living the masculine? How are you living the feminine energies? And what I was going to say is that what I found through my first dream interpretation with Michael Sheridan was there was stuff that he got out of my dreams that I really did not realize that it was there. Definitely not on a conscious plane. But as he continued to ask me those questions about my mother and my father, I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess, yeah, that's how I felt about it then. And I guess I still feel about it that way, but I didn't sit there and
Wow.
dwell on it. I didn't think I was thinking about it. But through the dreams, it shows you that you're still dealing with that. So,
Noodling
yeah.
around.
So, how do you go about uncovering the parts that we're not really, your clients are not really aware are really what's the problem?
I'll usually try to track it back. So I can usually start with something that's pretty obvious. So let me give you an example. Someone the other day, uh, she had a list of like all these fears. It was like a list of like 13 different fears she wanted to address. They were like oddly specific too that were I remember. Oh, so one was a fear of going over bridges, but just ones where she couldn't see the other side. Okay. So, and she's like 60 and she's like 60 years old and she had all this list of stuff. And in 30 seconds, we drop in and she's back where when her parents were getting divorced when she was 5 years old. She didn't know what was going to happen. And this fear of the unknown was in all these parts of her life. So, because she never addressed it, now it's this, now it's this, now it's this, now it's
Well,
this.
yeah.
So by going back to the root of that, we were able to address all those things in like a couple minutes
So what
rather
was
than just
so you're saying she went under, she was in hypnosis. She was
she
under
was.
hypnosis.
Yeah, and it was like, but like I had her take a breath, close her eyes,
Yeah.
think about that fear, and then instantly she was back. Like it was like 30
Okay.
seconds. And so I didn't take her through an induction. I just
Yeah.
had her take a breath, close her eyes, and we were back when she was 5. She's like, why am I back here? I'm like, well, let's figure it out. And so when you get to the root of where stuff is coming from, then you can address it from there because otherwise you're just going through one thing at a time on the
Yes.
surface.
And
And
exactly. It's just like dealing with the outside and then you still have to deal with
yeah.
you would continue to create the problems.
So you talked about that word web. That's what made me think of that. Is like you track that back to the root of origin, and then you're like, oh, you're back to your original word, and you're like, oh, there it is. And then you can
Yeah.
like pulling out the bottom piece in Jenga there, and the rest of the stuff
Yes.
just kind of falls in place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a really good visual. I like that. I think we should make a video or something that explains that. I probably will actually at some point,
yeah,
but
go for it.
yeah, yeah.
One of the things, so you mentioned dreams. This is one thing I do every session. So the night before, I put out the intention to work with that person. That's what, and then like people will tell me about the work we're doing. I'll have dreams about their lifetimes, and
Okay.
like we're processing stuff. And by the time they get to me, they're all lubed up, ready to go, and we just take off. So all the pieces are in place, everything is prepared. It's like, I
Which
don't know,
they're
it's like,
also doing that too, right? Like, because
yeah,
even just setting the appointment is intention and
sure.
before
But
that.
when I started doing that, everything just like ramped up. It's like
Oh, really?
everything is on land. Oh, here's the itinerary of what we're gonna cover. It's like all the pieces are there, and we just like take off from there.
So
So,
when you do that and you're dreaming,
mhm.
when you come out of it, how does that turn out in your in your awake life? Like, do you come out of it and you like, do you just remember, or do you
Sometimes
write things down, or what?
I don't write things down. It feels like it's already preparing things that I mean I don't have to worry about. I wanted to be aware of everything and I asked to do that, and I was exhausted the next day. I was so tired. I was so drained because I remembered all of it and it didn't help. So I asked to remember the pieces that I need, and then usually I forget about them until we're in the session. They're like, "Oh, there's that. Oh yeah, I remember that."
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
it kind of falls into place. And a lot of times I won't remember any of it. Doesn't matter. It's still like all ramping them up where um things are already moving. So
Yeah, I find that really interesting how our clients, when they come to us, are it's not only just that we're working on things, like we're each working on something similar for ourselves, but it really is it's a co-creation. So it's just like you're describing, where you're doing your part of the work, they're doing their part of the work, and then the experience happens. It's almost like that's a really good illustration of doing the energetic shift and then the physical follows it. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and then that's when I come in. It's like I have a cape on, and it's like we do
Yeah.
all this stuff in the session, but really it started. It's been happening. And it's
Yeah.
going to keep happening. Everyone thinks the session is the day of it, but really it's not. It's so much more than all that.
Yeah.
Um, And even like as I'm learning about this, like I'll learn like a little piece of how things work, and then I'm like, wow, there's 20 more things I don't know. Like it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm like, I don't have a clue, do I? Like
Well, what's the most recent or coolest thing that you remember learning from this? You're talking about how it works. So like whatever you want to take that as.
um like that I was being shown like how things move on a like energetic level, and how like you talked about going through like a trauma or something like that, how that impacts your energetic field, and how intention works, and how like, and then I don't know, it just even gets bigger and bigger than that, and like how many things are happening on so many levels, when
Hmm.
you realize like how many like helpers you have in like this this healing process, and how many other things are at play. And I like, the more I'll ask about like what's going on or what's actually happening, and they're like, "Oh, we're just doing this." It's just like matter of fact, like, "Oh yeah, we're just taking this gold filament from this dimension and putting this in there to
Yeah.
heal this." I'm like, "All right." It just kind of blows my mind with some of this stuff, but
So are you getting that like when you sit down and you meditate, or are you getting that while you're in
I'm
session?
asking in the session, and
Okay.
I don't know, different pieces I'll get along like in different ways. Sometimes it'll be a meditation, or sometimes like I'll be showing outside of a session like how things are happening, or how the different parts of it works.
And so how frequently would you say this happens for you? I would assume every day.
With what?
Just getting enlightenment on
Well,
new
every
information.
session it
Yeah.
seems it's like there's always like a different piece or a different thing, and
And you're getting it in your regular everyday life too, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's at the same time too, it's just almost like Dolores calls it like mind candy. You can literally lose yourself
Oh,
into
yeah.
like the mechanics of everything and how everything works, but like at the end of the day, I guess I'm going for just results. I want the
Yeah.
person to come out better on the other side of it, and how that looks or how it happens um, doesn't matter too much, but it sure is fun to like to, to
Yeah, it's
see
fun
all
to
the
play.
moving pieces. Yeah,
Yeah.
keeps it interesting, keeps the game interesting. So I get bored real easy. Never in this. It's never a dull day at the office, I'll tell you
That's
that.
true.
Someone will come to me to quit smoking. We'll end up on a different planet, and like, okay. Like,
Well, awesome. Thank you so much. Do you want to share anything with about how people could connect with you? Or I don't remember if you have a free gift. You want to say something about any of that?
Yeah, I do have a lot of videos on my YouTube channel now. All of my classes and workshops and stuff are actually free now. On So I'll put a link into that for like the free
Okay.
gift where you can walk through some of this self-healing. So it doesn't matter if it's a mental thing, an emotional thing, a physical thing. There's different processes on this that will guide you through that. And I would say when I do that workshop, like in person, half the people come with a physical symptom, and they leave without it, just coming to that group
Yeah.
thing. So it is powerful. And I'm still working on that part, how to reach more people, because a lot of the work I'm doing is one-on-one. So it's like,
Mhm.
okay, how can I expand this where people can get healing? And I've been kind of refining that. And now
Have you considered doing it on Zoom or like a webinar or something like that where they can do it online?
I have, and I think everyone should have access to this. That's kind of my belief. So
Yeah.
that's why I put out the videos for people to do this. And
Yeah.
just because it's not in person doesn't mean it's not just as powerful. Like
Yeah.
a lady contacted me just recently and said her brain tumor went away in 3 weeks just going through the videos. So like, you
Oh,
don't need me
sweet.
to do this. Like
Yeah.
each
Yeah.
person's healing themselves. That's what I love about this is like, I would love to take credit for all this stuff, but it's really not up to me at the end of the day. So I can show them the door. I can maybe push them through it a little bit, but ultimately it's up to each person to do this. And that's kind of what I love about it, because people start taking their power back and they realize how powerful they
Yeah.
are in creating their reality and creating their state of being. So
That's one of the reasons I'm hopeful for the world. I know a lot of people get pretty down about the condition of whatever you want to focus on, but politics is really easy to focus on if you want to, or money or banking or whatever. It doesn't matter what it is, but there really is a lot of hope, because when people start to remember what their power is, then solutions come straight to you.
yeah.
Yeah. Send inquiries, suggestions for new discussion topics, and comments to podcast@happylioncenter.com. That's podcast@happylioncenter.com. If you found this content enjoyable or helpful, please comment, like, share, and download. Donations are appreciated and help us to produce more of similar content. Consider making a contribution at the links in the description box. Your support is greatly appreciated. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Happy Lion Center, and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone or anything. None of the content provided should be considered a substitute for legal, financial, medical, psychiatric advice, or as care from a certified professional.